You know, we often talk about problem solving with all these metaphors, things like cutting the Gordian knot. But today I want to start with one that's less of a metaphor and more of a chillingly direct philosophy.
Okay.
Imagine a car. It's speeding down a highway, carrying something that could cause just massive destruction. How do you stop it?
Right. And for Mir Dagan, the legendary late chief of the Mossad, the answer was brutally simple. He didn't believe in roadblocks or, trying to shoot out the tires.
No.
He said, and this is a quote, "Sometimes it's most effective to kill the driver, and that's that."
Kill the driver. It's the engine behind the massive stack of research we're unpacking today. We're looking at Rise and Kill First by Ronan Bergman. And honestly, calling this a history book feels like a huge understatement.
It really does. It reads more like a classified dossier someone just left on a park bench.
And that's not too far from the truth, is it? I mean, the backstory of how this book got made is almost as intense as what's in it.
Oh, absolutely. You have to understand, the Israeli military establishment didn't just dislike this book. They actively tried to kill it. In 2010, the IDF General Staff held a meeting just to figure out how to stop Bergman.
A meeting just for him.
Just for him. They warned former Mossad employees that talking to him would be a crime. They even threatened him with aggravated espionage.
Which is, ironically, probably the best marketing an author could ever hope for.
Exactly. If the military is holding secret meetings to stop your book, you know you're onto something big.
And he was. Despite all that, he managed to get, over 1,000 interviews and thousands of illicit documents.
And the picture he pieces together is just staggering. The book claims that since World War II, Israel has assassinated more people than any other country in the Western world.
That is a heavy, heavy statistic. And the title itself, Rise and Kill First, that's not just a catchy title, it's deeply rooted in religious law.
It is. It comes directly from the Babylonian Talmud. If someone comes to kill you, rise up and kill him first. It's a principle of self-defense.
So what we're going to do today is trace how that ancient principle evolved from, a desperate tactic by these ragtag militias
into a modern, state-run, industrial bureaucracy of killing.
Exactly. And we have to ask the big question Bergman poses. Is it actually effective? Does killing the driver really stop the car, or does someone else just get behind the wheel?
And to understand that, we have to go way back, before the State of Israel even existed, back to the pre-state underground.
This is the In Blood and Fire era. It's gritty. You have these groups like Lehi and Irgun operating in the shadows. And one story really sets the scene for everything that follows. The assassination of Tom Wilkin in 1944.
Tom Wilkin. He was a British CID officer, the Criminal Investigation Department, and he was a target because he was good. Incredibly good.
Spoke fluent Hebrew, understood the culture.
He was effectively dismantling these Jewish underground groups. Lehi decided that for them to survive, Wilkin had to die.
And the details of the hit are just cinematic. Two operatives, David Shamron and Yaakov Banai, they're waiting outside a church in Jerusalem.
Just standing there, revolvers in their pockets. The tension must have been immense.
And the signal, it was so low-tech. A young boy sitting outside a grocery store down the street was supposed to drop his hat.
Just drop his hat. That was it. That's the signal that Wilkin is coming.
And Shamron, one of the shooters, he recalled later that he felt no guilt. They let Wilkin pass, turned, and fired 14 times. Said a spurt of blood came out of his forehead like a fountain.
Brutal. But that lack of remorse is the key. It speaks to this mindset of pure survival. But here's the twist.
Okay.
At the time, the mainstream Jewish leader, David Ben-Gurion, the future first prime minister, he was dead set against this. He called it personal terror.
So how do you get from Ben-Gurion saying this is wrong to him becoming the father of a state that adopts this as a core policy?
In a word, the Holocaust. You just can't overstate the impact of that trauma.
The image of Jews going like lambs to the slaughter.
Exactly. The Zionist movement became obsessed with creating the new Jew, someone who fights back. So by 1948, Ben-Gurion looks at the map, sees 5 Arab armies invading, and realizes Israel will always be outnumbered.
They needed an asymmetrical edge. They couldn't win a conventional fight.
Precisely. And that edge became what they called pinpoint operations. And that takes us into the 1950s. The state is young, surrounded, and they start getting incredibly creative with how they deliver death.
This is the era of books, bombs, and scientists. The story of Mustafa Hafez is just wild. He's an Egyptian intelligence chief in Gaza.
And he's organizing these raids into Israel. They want him gone, but he's surrounded by guards. How do you get to him?
You use his curiosity against him.
They get a master bomb maker, Nathan Rothberg, to rig a book with explosives.
And he was so specific about it in the interview with Bergman. He said he calculated that exactly 300 grams of explosives was the magic number.
Right. Not too much, not too little. He said if it explodes in your face, it will kill a man for sure. They didn't want to bring down the whole building, just the target.
And it worked. Hafez opens the book and he's gone. But then the targets start to get more complicated. Morally.
Yeah, in the 1960s, they start going after German scientists who were helping Egypt build rockets. Some of them were former Nazis.
And that just triggers that never again trauma all over again.
For the Mossad, the idea of Germans building rockets to hit the Jewish state was psychological warfare.
Yeah.
So they launched a campaign of intimidation, letter bombs, threats to families in Europe.
It wasn't just about stopping the rockets. It was about exorcising a ghost.
Right. But if we're talking about a real turning point, the moment the gloves came off globally, that has to be Munich.
1972, the Munich Olympics massacre. 11 Israeli athletes murdered. That just changed the entire game.
Before Munich, hits in Europe were rare. It was bad form, diplomatically. After Munich, Prime Minister Golda Meir basically said, hunt them down wherever they are.
And that leads to Operation Spring of Youth in Beirut.
One of the most audacious raids you can imagine.
I mean, if you wrote this in a screenplay, people would say it's too much. You have Ehud Barak, a future prime minister,
Landing on a beach in the middle of the night, dressed as a woman.
as a brunette woman.
With grenades strapped under his dress, yes.
And they just walked through Beirut into the apartments of PLO leaders and took them out. A huge tactical success.
It proved Israel could reach anyone, anywhere. But, and there's always a but in this book, that confidence, that hubris.
It led directly to disaster in Lillehammer, Norway.
Oh, this one is just painful. The flip side of that James Bond success.
The Mossad thinks they've found Ali Hassan Salameh, the mastermind behind Munich. They track a man who looks like him to this small town.
They watch him, their shirts in, they shoot him in front of his pregnant wife.
But it wasn't him.
No,
Yeah.
It was a Moroccan waiter named Ahmed Bouchiki, an innocent man. The agents were caught. The whole operation was exposed. It was a brutal lesson that intelligence is fallible.
And when you get it wrong, there's no taking it back. You'd think a disaster like that would make them stop.
You would think. But fast forward to the 2000s and the second Intifada, and the exact opposite happens. Assassination goes from being a scalpel to, well, a hammer.
It became industrial. That's the only word for it. What was once a rare, agonizing decision became a daily routine.
And Bergman describes this joint war room, which is just an incredible image. You have the Shin Bet, the military, and lawyers
All sitting together.
watching drone feeds on screens. They even created a document called the Red Page that the Prime Minister signs to authorize a hit. They bureaucratized it.
And they had to justify this legally because it is extrajudicial execution.
Right. They relied on a legal opinion that used the Latin phrase inter arma enim silent leges.
In times of war, the law falls silent.
Basically, yeah. They argued these weren't criminals to be arrested. They were ticking bombs.
But then the definition of a ticking bomb started to stretch. This is the Bloom Doctrine. It wasn't just the suicide bomber anymore.
Nope. It became the political leader behind him. They targeted Sheikh Yassin, the founder of Hamas, a quadriplegic man in a wheelchair. The question became, is he a spiritual leader or a combatant? Israel decided he was a combatant.
And they had this fascinating analogy in the war room for the terror networks, the redundancy analogy.
It's a way of thinking. A car has a spare tire for redundancy. Terror networks have high redundancy. You kill one commander, another one just steps up.
So you can't just shoot one tire.
The logic became, you have to destroy enough nodes, enough tires and spare tires to make the whole car grind to a halt.
But this industrial approach, it had a moral cost for the people inside the system. The book talks about a rebellion in Unit 8200, the elite intelligence unit.
A critical moment. In 2014, a group of intelligence officers wrote a letter refusing to serve. They said they were being asked to target buildings based only on indications.
Indications, that sounds so vague.
It is. It means an electronic signature. Like a SIM card that belongs to a target is pinging inside a building, so they bomb the building.
But do you know who else is in there? Do you know if the target is even holding the phone?
Exactly. The soldiers' point was that it was becoming a video game, that technology creates distance. Killing someone with a revolver from 3 feet away is one thing. Dropping a bomb from a drone 5 miles away based on a data point. It's abstract. They warned it was causing moral erosion.
And this whole time there's another front. We have to shift gears to Iran. And this brings us right back to Mir Digan, the man who wanted to kill the driver.
Digan takes over the Mossad in 2002 with a very clear philosophy for Iran's nuclear program. No full-scale war. Instead, use sabotage and assassination to delay and disrupt.
And the methods are, again, straight out of a thriller. The motorcyclists in Tehran.
It was a clear pattern. Iranian nuclear scientists, stuck in traffic on their way to work, a motorcycle weaves through the cars, pulls up alongside.
The rider attaches a magnetic limpet mine to the car door and just speeds off.
Seconds later, boom. And the goal wasn't just to kill a scientist.
Oh, it was psychological.
Dagan wanted to create paranoia, to sow fear. If you're a nuclear physicist in Iran and your colleague gets blown up on his commute, maybe you think about a career change. It's about breaking the system's confidence.
And one of the biggest operations of this era involved the U.S. Imad Munia, the military chief of Hezbollah.
The ghost, responsible for the deaths of hundreds of Americans and Israelis. Untouchable for decades. But in 2008, the Mossad and the CIA teamed up in Damascus. President Bush reportedly gave the order himself. Go with God.
And the method?
Another variation on the car bomb, they put it in the spare tire of a parked Pajero Jeep.
There's that spare tire again.
The irony, right? Minia walked past the car and they detonated it.
Yeah.
A massive tactical success.
Which brings us to the ultimate question of the whole book. Hit after hit. Wilkin, Hafez, Munia. They're all tactical successes. The target is gone. But Bergman asks, did it work?
And this is his final verdict. He calls it impressive tactical success, disastrous strategic failure.
That is a damning conclusion.
It is. His argument is that Israel got so good at the shadow war, so brilliant at these precise eliminations, that it became a substitute for everything else.
Substitute for diplomacy.
Exactly. If you could always kill the driver, you might stop thinking about how to pave a different road. You solve the immediate problem, the ticking bomb, but you never solve the underlying political conflict. You might even make it worse.
Like the Hydra myth. Cut off one head, two more grow back.
And many of the sources in the book seem to come to this conclusion themselves. This sense of the banality of evil creeps in. When you have a system of lawyers and screens and forms to manage killing, it just becomes a bureaucratic routine.
The ultimate weapon becomes a crutch. It actually prevents you from reaching the ultimate goal, which is supposed to be peace.
Precisely. Dagan himself, the architect of so many of these operations, said later in life that military force alone resolves nothing. It can buy you time, but it can't create a solution.
So we're left with this chilling thought. We started with the car speeding toward the cliff. Killing the driver stops that one car for a moment. But if you don't change the direction of the road, the next car is just going to come speeding up right behind it.
And in this case, the traffic never seems to end.
That is a lot to process. Rise and Kill First is, it's a heavy read, but an absolutely essential one.
It really challenges this idea that there's any clean, surgical way to fight a war.
It does. Listeners, we want to know what you think. Does the weapon of last resort become a crutch that actually blinds you to the strategic loss?